What comes to mind when you hear the word mine? Maybe it's a tunnel. Maybe it's a shovel. Drills, shuttle cars, jewels. These are a few words that pop into my head when I hear the word mine. I also think of a song I learned when I was very young. This particular song was sung by 7 smiling dwarfs mining jewels.
We dig, 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 in our mine the whole day through. To dig, 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 dig is what we like to do.
Although Disney's 1937 princess movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, depicted mining as something easy, fun, and lyrical, the real stories and lives of miners is anything but.
Era para mí una buena idea. Estaba lleno de polvo y me ha hecho doler mi cabeza.
I didn't know much about Bolivia before living in Cochabamba for 3 weeks. I only knew that Evo Morales was the first indigenous president of Bolivia and of South America. My K-12 public education taught me a small history of pre-Columbian life of the indigenous people living in Central and South America, but really spent a larger time focusing on the Spanish conquistadores. I learned about the end of the Incan, Mayan, and Aztec civilizations. Teachers made it seem like that was it. Those cultures are gone, but that's far from the truth. One day during Spanish class in Bolivia, my teacher showed my classmates and I a documentary that blew my mind. It was called La Mina del Diablo and told the story of a 14-year-old boy who works in the mines of Cerro Rico, a mountain in Potosí, Bolivia. What first stood out to me was that this child, Basilio Vargas, was only 14 years old, and between school and mealtime he worked in a dangerous mine. Then what stood out to me was the fact that people like Basilio, who work in the mines of Cerro Rico, are still getting exploited to this day. Now, in order to understand what I mean by still getting exploited to this day, we have to go back to a few 477 years, when the Spanish first colonized South America. Before the Spanish colonized the area we now call Cerro Rico, the region was inhabited by the Quechua and Aymara people. The Quechua knew valuable minerals were around the area, so they created a labor system called mita, which means enslaving others to work in the mine. These mines were first called the Mines of Porco. What is now called Cerro Rico today was actually first called Sumaj Orco. Before the Spanish colonized the region, it was the Incan Empire that actually intended to exploit the mountain. However, when Incan Emperor Huayna Capac sent miners into the mountain, they came back and explained to him that a supernatural voice told them that they were not destined for the mines and that someone else was. Who do you think these other people were? That's right! The Spanish landed in Potosí in the year 1539. Now, Potosí isn't actually the true name of the area. Instead, it is the Spanish pronunciation of the indigenous word potoc, which means to spring forth. This is because waters spring out along the foothills of the mountain. Fast forward to 1544, when the Spanish began to exploit the mines of Porco. Spanish conquistador Juan de Villarroel had been exploiting these mines, but once he heard of Cerro Rico, he brought his men and claimed the mountain on behalf of King Charles I of Spain. Because the Spanish controlled Potosí and all its wealth, 40,000 tons of silver were shipped out of Bolivia and made the Spanish Empire the richest one in the world. The Spanish called Potosí the imperial city because it was as big and as rich as Madrid. There was even a saying, más de un Potosí, more than a Potosí, which has the connotation that the object was better than the greatest treasures ever found. Potosí became a hub for economic interest with a society of nobility, soldiers, priests, artists, and merchants. Although some inhabitants of Potosí were making a comfortable living for themselves, many did not. The indigenous people living in the area were being forced to work in the mines of Cerro Rico without protection. Many people perished by brutal treatment, hunger, disease, accidents within the mine, and poisoning from mercury used to purify metal in its raw form.
The working conditions for miners in Cerro Rico today have been altered only slightly. There are 300 mines still operating today since colonial times. On average, 300 out of the 15,000 miners die every year. This is due to cave-ins and lack of proper protection, from breathing in arsenic, sulfur, silver particles, moisture, and dirt. Many miners today don't use masks to block these harmful substances from entering their bodies. Workers are equipped with gloves, shovels, dynamite, helmets, headlamps, and mine carts. What set of circumstances led to children being involved in mining? Child labor has always existed in Bolivia and for a long time all over the world. A law was passed in 2014 stating that children 12 and over could legally work 6 hours a day, while children who were 10 could work with their parents' permission. Pay would be regulated and children would no longer receive less than minimum wage, which is $250 a month. Mining is still illegal because the law states that any type of work is okay as long as it isn't harmful. Child mining happens every day, unregulated. President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, who is a former child worker himself, supports the new law because he believes it gives the children more protection and more rights. Still, many workplaces are unregulated and the children in mines work with explosives or dangerous machinery daily. This work is caused by extreme poverty and the need for children to support their families.
4 people die every month in Cerro Rico, and the risk is rising from day to day. The fact that thousands of people, mostly men, from the age of 15 up to 55, risk their lives every day, even though they are aware of the enormous risk, shocked me. The mountain is about to collapse, the peak is unstable, but people don't have another option than work there if they don't want their families and themselves to starve. Today, after nearly 500 years of constant mining for the silver, tin and zinc that funded the Spanish Empire and shaped Bolivia's economic fortunes, Cerro Rico's bones are weakened, and its iconic peak is caving in. Now the race is on to reinforce the mountaintop and save this national monument through a government-funded $2.4 million film project. The urgency is doubled because Cerro Rico is not just a testament to Bolivia's history, it is also a maze of working mines that employ 15,000 miners, generating revenue that supports the entire city. Named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987, along with the city of Potosí, the mountain's unmistakable form appears on Bolivia's currency and the national shield. It represents a history of tremendous wealth, but also suffering for the indigenous people and enslaved Africans who died mining it, earning Cerro Rico the title, the mountain that eats man. For many, imagining Cerro Rico without its peak is akin to imagining the Statue of Liberty without her torch. In 2012, the Bolivian government began an ambitious project to pump ultralight cement into the peak, stabilizing the brittle rock and halting its inward collapse. Despite the challenges presented by working in freezing conditions at 15,500 feet above sea level, the plan advanced. Bolivia's state-owned mining company, commonly known by its Spanish acronym Comibol, predicted that in 2014 the film project would be complete and the top of Cerro Rico restored to its former shape. But last December, the summit once again crumbled, and rock continues to tumble as if through a giant funnel into the depths of the mountain. Now, the fruit of last year's labor, which looked so promising, is hanging, fractured, from the edge of the sinkhole, or littering the abyss below with metal and concrete. The stabilization project is currently on hold as workers wait to see whether a plan to pump up tons of rock already stripped of minerals into the growing hole will be approved. But in the meantime, the interior of the sinkhole continues to sink a couple centimeters a day. Despite the great wealth Cerro Rico brought the kings and his industrialists, the department of Potosí remains one of Bolivia's poorest. As for employment outside of mining, there is little work for someone without much education or land, and certainly nothing that pays as well as mining. A day laborer in the mines working 5 days a week can earn $360 a month, more than double minimum wage.